Okay, I can still see you're in the chat. Disconnect and then rejoin the chat. Hopefully you can hear me. Hello? Hello? It seems we've lost Mark Madison, folks, so I'm just going to fill in. Okay. Where's he gone? I don't know where Mark has gone. I'm going to sing my song. I'm not going to sing. I'm cutting all this out anyway, so it makes no difference. Hello? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast. I am your host, Mark Madison. No, I'm not. I'm Mark Blake. Jesus Christ. I'm literally 15 seconds. No, okay. Screw it. Let's carry on from here. I don't care. I've got football to watch later. I'm Mark Blake. And across the pond, it's my co-host, Mark Madison. How you doing, dude?
Sorry. I'm okay. I'm just trying to get it together. I'm sorry.
Oh. Okay, so let me fill the millions in. It is Sunday, the 14th of July. It's literally 4:45 UK time. England, the football team, are playing in the Euro Championship final against Spain later this afternoon or this evening, and I am all hyped up. And yeah, I'm kind of forgetting and whatever. You all know. So that's where my head's at. So that's a good start. How you doing, man? Are you composed now?
I am. Thanks for the minute to kind of give me a chance to get it together. Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited for you guys. We'll be cheering you guys on from our side of the pond in a couple hours as well.
Yes, I'm very excited. Myself, my wingman, we are. I honestly, we've like quite a few hours from kickoff, and I am very antsy. I can't keep still. You may hear this in the background, but I'm kind of tapping my legs just to I can't keep still. So this record should be very, very fun. That's all I'm going to say, because my mind is a million different places at once. But I'm going to concentrate and direct all my attention to you millions out there. Thank you once again for listening to us. Thank you once again for downloading and liking and everything you lot do for us. It does not go unappreciated at all. Now, with that being said, and my state of mind that I've just said, I'm going to hand over pretty much the rest of this pod to Mark, as he, Mark Madison, not the Mark Blake, as he has quite a few questions about a topic that we both spoke about quite a while ago, and it kind of got buried under the radar, and now we're bringing it back. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, thanks, buddy. So as we've talked about when we did our Mount Rushmore edition a few weeks back, we talked about things that really kind of have staying power, and the one thing that seems to never really go away comes back. It's like it's popular and it ends, comes back again. Are wrestling factions, regardless of the promotion, regardless of the period of time, wrestling factions have been pretty prominent over the last, I want to say, 40 years at least. Really, in our time throughout the 80s up until now into the 2020s, factions, whether it's a grouping of three or more, have been really, really prominent. One faction if we go back into the early 80s that was prominent was that, in fact, when we just mentioned this, right, Mark, I hadn't known, I thought it was a little bit later, but I knew about seedlings being planted was the Dangerous Alliance, led by Paul E. Dangerously, or Paul Heyman. As it was mentioned, back in the 90s, in the 80s, when we had Adrian Adonis, what would I guess be the OG or original Midnight Express of Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose, to consist of the making of the group. But the group took a bit of a different turn in the era of WCW. What do you remember about the group? What stood out to you about them?
So, literally 10 minutes ago, I didn't know that the Dangerous Alliance was actually formed before WCW. It was in the AWA. That kind of blew my mind a little bit, and considering, again, my state of mind, it's shattered in 1,000 pieces. The AWA, wow. I mean, I know that obviously that Paul Lee was there and quite a few other territories before he got to WCW. I didn't know he didn't team, but I didn't know he made the original Dangerous Alliance with the Midnight Express as well. That shocked me. Very, very shocked.
Because when you think of Paulie Dangerously back in the AWA and the earlys, it was as a manager per se, but it was like as a one-off and as a kind of a commentator. He was kind of like that jack of all trades, right? But when you think back to his early days in being a photographer, and that's how he kind of got in the business and stuff. But yeah, the fact that he worked under Vern Gagne in the AWA, took the idea of the Dangerous Alliance, and it grew. What do you remember of them from your time, I guess, watching them, I guess, in the WCW area? Because I really didn't watch them in the AWA to know enough that, like, oh, okay, these guys were also part of the group.
Yeah. I was completely oblivious to the AWA and any other territory when I first saw my version of the Dangerous Alliance. I think I saw them in about 92. And I've said this before in a few pods. Go back to the archives and listen, folks. Where I would record on my VCR late night TV, like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's when certain WCW shows were shown over here. It was very, very out of the way, kind of like how ECW were on TNN and the rest of it. I think when I watched it, I was about a year behind, and it was, who was it? It was some guy in a mask, the Phantom, and he was with Paulie Dangerously. There was this Phantom guy that had completely and utterly demolished this dude in the ring, and when he was unmasked, it was Ravishing Rick Rude. And how old was I at the time? I was like 13, 14 at the time. I'm like, oh my God, that's Rick Rude. And 4 years before that, I saw him in WWF feuding with Hogan and Warrior, very high up the card. And I always thought it was WCW, being a Brit that didn't know much back at the time, as a much lower standard WWF. The production value wasn't there. The fans didn't really sound as loud and all that kind of stuff. So seeing him there, it was like, oh my word, wow, what's he doing there? And then it all sort of kicked off from there. So yeah, it was the Phantom / Rick Rude, looking absolutely fantastic and great as he always did, telling the sweat hogs to shut their mouths and stuff. But yeah, it was that was the beginning. Although at the time, obviously no one knew that was the beginning. But looking back and going online now and seeing countless articles about the Alliance, that's when it first happened. But yeah, that was my first input with the Alliance.
If you look at who was part of the Alliance, and if you look at like wrestling's history, really, in WCW and wrestling in general, it really is a who's who of really solid. There's a one commonality that lists amongst all of them, and I would say workmanship, like their work rate.
Yeah.
And all of them were really, really good workers. Some were great workers and great talkers. Do you want to divulge maybe post, not just Rick Rude, but who else was maybe a part of it that stood out to you?
Oh, it was Steve Austin. Just blatantly Steve Austin with hair, which at the time wasn't that weird to me because, Steve Austin, he was so good. So good. He was a totally different wrestler to the guy that was in WWF. Or WWE, as it became. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was so slick, so smooth. He could talk. Well, you know he can talk, but I don't know, it felt like that everyone in the Alliance found some kind of confidence that came from Paul. And looking back, what we know now was when he was in ECW and he kept doing like the rah-rah speeches, he instilled that confidence in the entire roster. So my thinking is that maybe he did that with the Alliance. It's like you're not being booked well enough. Let's go out there and show them that you are the best, that you deserve to be where you are and more. Let's go. And he hypes him up that way. And yeah, Steve, was the shine to me at the time was the shining star of that entire group, which is really weird to say when you got Rick Rude, you've got Bobby Eaton, you've got Larry Zbyszko, you know, you've got all these legends, and it was Steve that literally shone out for me. Just a good time. Again, it was the late night recordings and watching it back the next day, and this WWF alternative that, yeah, okay, it didn't have the production value, it didn't have the lighting and the sound and the crowd and that kind of stuff, but damn, did the stories absolutely rock. And the in-ring, when it came to like the upper tier talent, the in-ring work was absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, for sure. There's no denying that too. I think what we also probably saw in that group is one of the members being really the first Paul Heyman girl.
Yeah. Medusa.
And Medusa, yeah.
Again, I didn't see hardly any female wrestling because on WWF they hardly ever showed it. The females were always the valets. So seeing a woman wrestler against some amazing top tier Japanese talent as well at the time, again blew my mind. It was like, wow, she can go. She's really good, and she could talk. She was literally such a huge package. Really was the first Paul Heyman girl, and I'm sure she said that in her Hall of Fame speech as well, didn't she?
Yeah, she probably did. Did it proudly. So Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, as you said, amongst everyone else that was super talented, very underrated tag team, and how skilled they were as a unit. When you think back, wow, well, like Arn Anderson's known for his time with the Horsemen, and Larry Zbyszko was a world champion in the AWA, but you put them together, they're formal champions together. It's almost unfortunate they weren't together as long as they were. You definitely had two gifted guys that could gab, and then you put them with Heyman. It's almost like for tying to share, but they all had it.
Like I said, Heyman has this little pouch of stardust, I think, and anyone who comes in a close orbit to him, he just sprinkles them, and they just elevate even more. Which, as I said, and as you said, is unbelievable considering the talent that he had under his wing, even that was flying high before he even got to them. You know, Heyman's just one of a kind. Really is.
He really is. Now, there's one name that's mentioned that I was a little surprised, and I don't really remember, but Michael P.S. Hayes is listed as a past member of the Dangerous Alliance back in the WCW days. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that at all. I don't.
It could be Wikipedia playing its silly hand on us because, I mean, he was a freebird.
He's always a freebird. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
So those were the members in WCW. We mentioned the members in the AWA. Also part of Continental members, Missy Hyatt, Eddie Gilbert, Tommy Rich, Austin Idol. All, again, you see similarities. Maybe Hyatt is technically the first Paul Heyman girl. I don't know, but I mean, it would be debatable between relationships between Heyman and Missy and Heyman and Medusa, but I think we're splitting hairs on who specifically.
So. Yeah.
As they move towards their time past WCW, and they've had their notable feuds and were recognized too, we move into ECW, and there was a Dangerous Alliance that had taken shape there. For anybody that wasn't privy to ECW, early years, names like Sabu, Jimmy Snuka, again, Eddie Gilbert resurfaces as a Heyman guy, Don Morocco, Dark Patriot, 9/11, the late Sherry Martel. Do you remember anybody from this particular incarnation? Do you remember seeing any of this? I didn't. I can't speak to that.
Now, see, being over here as a Brit and trying to watch early WCW at 2-3 o'clock in the morning was hard enough. Getting ECW would have been downright insanely hard to get. I didn't get any ECW till Oh, I'm trying to think now. I think my tape trading was 98, 99 for ECW.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been 94 onwards. Because when I used to write for the site, the ECW Retro View, that was pretty much where the Retro View series started, is where my ECW started, basically. So before that, I haven't got a clue. So yeah, again, seeing names like Snooker and Dark Patriot, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, I didn't know that he had so many incarnations in however many different territories he's been and promotions. I don't remember a lot. When he had Taz, Sabu, and 911, was that really the Dangerous Alliance? I didn't class it as. I don't remember.
And I wouldn't so either, but it could have been so early. Like, we're maybe talking, it might have even been under the Eastern Champ Wrestling moniker almost before it crossed over into Extreme. And it was so early.
I don't know. Just reading like Wiki, it's saying that the last incarnation of the Dangerous Alliance of Taz, Sabu, and 911 was in like when they broke away from the NWA and became Extreme Championship Wrestling. So, but again, I don't remember that. Was it really a flash in a pan? I don't know.
It might have been. It might have been just that. It's almost a blink and you miss it. It might have been. So even when searching for, when we did a piece on the site on the history of the Dangerous Alliance, trying to find images that captured Jimmy Snuka and Don Morocco alongside were hard. They're fewer and far between. I almost want to go check out the network and see if we can capture something. But now there was, I'm not sure if you want to call it an incarnation or a parody, the New Dangerous Alliance, which was led by Louis Dangerously, Johnny Swinger, Simon Diamond, C.W. Anderson, Elektra, Eric Watts, and Billy Wiles. Do you remember? I remember Louis Dangerously, and I thought Louis Dangerously was a Dudley at one point, or one of the Dudley boys.
I think he was.
Yeah, so again, that's why I say maybe it's just part of the parody of stuff, where they took something that Paul created and just even made fun of it. Do you remember seeing any of this a little bit?
No, not at all. Not at all. But looking at the names on it, I mean, the names there are, C.W. Anderson, Eric Watts especially, Johnny Swing and Simon Diamonds, they're kind of go hand in hand, and them two. So, yeah, I'm quite surprised why I don't know anything about this new Dangerous Alliance. But it's just a bit like LOD 2000 and things like that. Maybe it's so bad that people have just buried their head in the sand and gone, no, I don't remember that, mate. No.
Yeah. I can think of this maybe being around when it's nearing the end, maybe during its TNN era when it was there and Cyrus was part of the network. I'm thinking maybe, possibly, maybe. But I mean, as Mr. Blake has said, as he would say, please, one of the millions, fill us in. Is our timeline off? Are we very, very confused, tired, excited football fans that are waiting? Please share in, chime in, and we'll share our socials at the end.
Yes, please. The amount of caffeine that I've had today is just unreal. So my memory is probably going to be slightly off. But again, the Dangerous Alliance, my version, I think if you go online, I think the consensus will be the only version will be the WCW one, because it shone bright, it shone hard, and it shone fast. It's like the Brood. I mean, the Brood was around for 3 months, but everyone remembers the Brood like it was like a 4-year run. It wasn't. It was like 3-4 months. This WCW Dangerous Alliance version is the best version, and it's what everyone thinks about. At least I do, anyway.
You did say something, and I just want to pick a nugget out of it, which is just weird, and even that I put that into a sentence. But you mentioned it. You mentioned LOD 2000, and not so much LOD 2000 because, honestly, whether it's Road Warriors or LOD, Legion of Doom, one of the things that always seems to surprise people, because, again, Precious Paul Ellering managing Hawk and Animal was something that always people remembered. But when you really go back and trace its infancy in its earliest days, to know that King Kong Bundy and Jake Roberts helped to make the origins of the Legion of Doom. It's pretty awesome. Do you remember seeing or hearing that?
No, I don't. Seeing that, hell no. That's part of wrestling history I'm not privy to and never had access to be fair. If it's on the network, then it's buried so well that I couldn't find it. I don't remember. I've heard all about it. I'm sure. Didn't you cover it on a site, or someone wrote about it on a site, or in the group chat back in the day?
We have had an image that's floated around on our Facebook page, talking about, hey, by the way, it's just a matter of there's one with Paul Ellering, Hawk Animal, with very different face paint. It's almost like Village People type eyeliner way back in the day, along with Jake Snake Roberts. But finding Bundy as a part of that would be hard to get that image in there.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, it's I don't know. It just feels like there's parts of wrestling history that it's. I wouldn't say it's well documented, but it becomes. Is it like myth? Is it a legend, or did it really happen? And you try and find it, and it's so hard to find any corroboration of it, or a picture or something. So you're kind of stuck. So I'd like to have been there.
We both had, if we go on a common ground, the WWF in the 80s, even if we're going mid to late 80s, would have had access to Bobby Heenan's family. Like managers and factions seemed to be almost like they went hand in hand, right? You had the Heenan family, Jimmy Hart's crew of wrestlers. You had Slick and Freddie Blassie, and like it was one after another. Luscious Johnny Val, like it went and went and went to like the names of people changed of all those factions, because we would be here for a while, and who knows, maybe we do a part two. Was there any of those particular groups that stood out to you, and why?
What, in the 80s?
Yeah, I'm talking WWF days.
The only one that really springs to mind is Bobby Heenan's family. It was Andre, it was Haku. Did he have Barbarian? And
he did.
The Warlord.
He had Barbarian.
He had Barbarian. But yeah, it was. That was the. Can I think of any other factions?
Rick Rude, like you were talking about Rick.
Oh, Rude. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. All members of the faction. So I'm trying to think of any other factions. The only time, to me, as a kid growing up watching WWF, the only time the factions kind of really became forefront was around about Survivor Series, because that was the perfect time to do it. Old school Survivor Series, folks. Not like it is now, where it's just another pay-per-view.
No.
And then it was like 5-on-5 elimination tag matches.
So we're looking at like 87 later. Yeah.
Yeah. A family. I don't know. I can't really think of much more after that, to be fair.
Yeah. Like you almost felt like Heenan's family was the most prominent. Jimmy Hart had guys that he managed as a collection.
It didn't.
But it wasn't really a collection.
Yeah. Whereas Bobby Heenan, he how can I say this? He had his family. He hardly ever had them all on screen at the same time. But there was, in his promos, there was a common thread that he always talked about his family. But when Jimmy Hart had, say, the Bulldogs, he wouldn't talk about anyone else on his like Honky Tonk. There was never any correlation between the two. He wouldn't talk about the rest of his talent. It was basically the talent that he had there, which is wrestling 101. That's what you do. You put over the talent you got in front of you. I think that could be a reason why I don't remember any factions, even though I suppose Hart's family was a faction.
Well, yeah, that's the Hart part, right? Because he had the Hart Foundation, and then he had the Honky Tonk, and he had Greg Valentine. But were they all as a collection that they were a collection, or parts of? Like Mr. Perfect was with Jimmy Hart, but would you was he part of, was with Bobby Heenan, but was he part of the Heenan family? Did that come after? Some parts get a little muddled, right?
Wrestling was a lot more simple back then. The fandom back then was a lot more easier to understand. There was no shades of grey like there is nowadays. There's no tribalism like there is nowadays. Oh well, actually no, it's a lie. There was tribalism. The NWA, the WCW, the WWF, the territory days. Whose was better, but it was nowhere near as vitriolic as it is now, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So if we looked at that in the WWF days, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention even the not the Heart Foundation, but the Four Horsemen, and how they tended to ran through and were changing members, had tons of staying power, were quite popular with who they had as part of it. What were your thoughts? Do we dare go overrated, or were they most notable? No. Okay.
No,
I didn't want to be too controversial, but I'm looking to spark debate. What are your thoughts on the Four Horsemen?
The Four Horsemen created factions. As far as I'm concerned, if there wasn't for Four Horsemen, I don't think factions really would have worked as much. These were four guys who got together to become the best of what they could be. And they did on multiple occasions. So people, as you said, the members were interchangeable. Someone would leave, their spot would be taken by someone else, and not instantly, but they would become a champion. If you're a horseman, you would become a champion. Plain and simple. You can't beat them. Seriously, I know the Dangerous Alliance is my favourite one because, as I said, they shone bright, they shone hard, they shone fast. But Horsemen, I mean, look at the goddamn talent. Ric Flair.
Yeah.
One of the greatest wrestlers in the world. Hands down. You can shoot me on that. I don't care. The guy, if it wasn't for him and Hogan back in the 80s, wrestling would have gone down a completely different path because there was no one around that would have carried their respective companies on their backs like they did. And then you had, my version of the Horseman was Flair, Arn, Tully, and, oh my God, who was it? I think it was Barry Windham.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was Windham, yeah. That was my best. When I started watching the Horseman, that was the version that I saw. And then with the advent of the internet and everything else, you could scroll back in time and just see goddamn how dominant they were. And the Horsemen, number one on my list, and they should be on number one on everyone's list because they are the original. They are the blueprint that every single faction looks at now.
Agreed. I mean, they had incarnations that ran later where they really tried to capture the spirit. I mean, when they added Malenko towards the end, and some other members that were also tied to physically falling into place. But there was something missing. And I think when you take Arn Anderson out and put him in a managerial role, it just doesn't have that same something,
Yeah. So whereas Ric Flair with the face and the voice, Arn's the heart, man. You take him out, it's you're losing 50%. Seriously. I know there's like four members of the group, but he's that important to the group. He really was. And what can we say about Arn that hasn't been said a million times before? The guy's a legend. Yeah. Absolute legend. Tough as nails. Fantastic mind for the business. Amazing wrestler. The most beautiful spine buster you will ever see in your entire life. Mm-hmm. It is a literal thing of beauty. What can we say?
Yeah. So I mentioned this might be a little bit a funnier direction where we head with this when it comes to the Horsemen, but when we looked at notable members, any notable for the wrong reasons?
Okay. Top of my head. Trying to think. Oh, okay. Sid Vicious. What the hell?
Really?
Oh yeah. Sid was over, dude. Sid was over. He didn't need the Horsemen. The way that I saw it, and still see it now, is that you get called into the Horsemen to elevate you. And Sid Vicious didn't. He was a major top tier talent. I think he was a former champion by that point as well. So why did he need to go to the Horsemen? To me, it didn't make any sense. But then I overthink things at the best of times. And I try not to pick holes in stories, but I try to make the logic of stories, which is stupid because wrestling is not logical.
No, it's not. Do you remember Paul Roma?
I remember Paul Roma, yeah. He had a look, man. God, his physique. Wow.
Yeah. Do you think he was a right fit in the Horsemen?
Well, if you base it on what I just said, where they sort of cherry pick you and say, right, we're going to elevate you, then yeah. But Paul Roma, as I just said, the physique was insane. He was just chiseled out of goddamn marble, that guy. But his in-ring was okay. He had a great drop kick, from what I remember. But his personality was bland. He had no personality. Yeah. And I think that's why they put him in the Horseman, trying to cover that personality. But to be a Horseman, you need a personality.
Yeah, indeed. Sting being a part of the Horseman, surprising or needed, or in the grand scheme of things, if you look back?
Right, I'm going to contradict myself here. So I just said how Sid Vicious shouldn't have been in Horseman because he was already established and everything else. I'm going to say Sting kind of worked, and just because of the relationship with Rick, I just got, how can I put it? Rick, even now, even in 2024, Rick still wants to be number one, and no matter what, everything he does. Okay, it could be getting up off the sofa to go get himself a Woo energy drink. It could be running to the bus stop. It could be anything. He needs to be first. He needs to be number one. So when Sting joined, I think Rick took that as a slight. And it was like, well, I'm going to now elevate myself even more because you don't need to be here. You're Sting, for crying out loud. You're world renowned. You're up there with Ric Flair. So it kind of worked. The juxtaposition between the two, it worked for me. Again, it didn't really work storyline wise, but yeah, just them two just one-upping each other, trying to force each other up. That was I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Great to share that. So as we're moving, hello. Power went out.
Yeah, I just got a message. Damn.
You just got that message. Okay, so it's all back. Do you even remember what the last thing I said was? Sorry.
It was
talking
about Sting in the Horseman. Yeah.
I think you finished on that.
Yeah.
But I think we were trying to track forward. Okay, so in the WWF, I guess WCW, we've pretty much most prominent faction in WCW, as we kind of covered, would have been Dangerous Alliance. We're fledgling. They weren't really sticking around. But once we got into the Attitude and era and where the big boys play in the Monday Night Wars, factions once again were super prominent. To you, which stood out? Which was the most notable?
Okay, are we covering both companies?
We could focus on one primarily, and if we want to revisit another one another day.
Okay, right. So do you want to do WCW now, and then we'll come back and do WWFE later?
Sure, at another time. We can do like a part 2. Sure.
Okay, I don't really want to start with the one that everyone's going to think about or say because it's too obvious. Okay. And we'll leave that towards the end. Mainly
what because was you don't want
to. And shockingly, hot take, I was never a fan of them, but we'll get to that in the next whatever many minutes it is. Who do we have? So, I remember there was a time when I couldn't get the WCW TV show over here. It just was taken off our schedules. And then it came back via Sky TV. There was I think it was a channel called Bravo over here, and they had it. Mm-hmm. I was just scrolling across one day and it was on there. Oh my God, WCW is back. Oh my God, what's this, Nitro? So I missed quite a lot of Nitro. So get this: the first thing I saw on the brand new Nitro that I hadn't actually seen was a guy called Hugh G. Rection, which tickled me. It tickled me for quite a while. That was good. The MIA Misfits in Action. That's the one.
You got it. Yeah.
That was my first introduction into, I think, about 3 years of lost WCW. Especially with Matt, who was the I'm going to try and put this as politely as possible. Who was the female lady blonde with the
Major Guns?
Major Guns. That's the one. Yes, with the big guns. Yeah. She had my attention quite a lot. Every time she was on screen.
The teenager in both of us kind of.
Dude, I wasn't a teenager. I was. Oh my god, how old was I? I was like late teens, early 20s. I was like, she come on screen and wow! I said it last week about the wolf meme with the eyes that pop out and the jaw that hits the floor. Yeah, that was me then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't get them at all. I didn't understand them. Why were they military? Why did they have all these military names? It didn't make any sense. But then you had a name like Huge Erection and Major Guns. It didn't really bother me.
No.
So that was good. Looking back. So looking obviously with the hindsight of the internet and looking back, you had the Dungeon of Doom, which was the complete opposite of the MIA, because Dungeon of Doom was proper cartoony, old school.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the shark. The guy's goddamn earthquake, and you've repackaged him as the shark. What are you doing?
Oh.
What are you doing? This guy squashed Damien, for Christ's sake. That's the snake, dude. Not a guy called Damien. He squashed Damien the snake.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. That was fun.
Yeah.
You called them already. I didn't call them. You said Los Borealicas. You had the obviously we'll talk about the NWO later, but you had the LWO, the original LWO, not the version that's in WWE right now, but you had the original Latino World Order. At the time, I didn't realise how much of an impact that group had on me. But wow, the LWO. That's the first time I saw Ray. First time I saw Juventud, Psychosis, Eddie Guerrero. It's the first time I saw really any of them. And at the time, it was like, oh, this is just a rip-off of the NWO, because WCW's got the BWO, and, right. It just any bloody group had WO in their name. So it was just like, I didn't really get it. But, man, the talent they had in that group. Oh, and Eddie fronting it, and just this charismatic, absolute bastard of a wrestler who he was slimy and so good. So good. Yeah, okay. I've beat around the bush long enough. Here's my hot take. NWO. Never liked it. Never understood it. I don't get it. No, that's a lie. I do understand it. I understand that these were not WCW OGs. They were guys brought in from the outside who wanted to take over WCW and make it their wrestling company. I understood that, absolutely. I didn't like it. I liked the beginning. I liked Hogan, I liked Hall, I liked Nash. That beginning part, especially at Bash at the Beach, with the turn and the ring filling up with trash and the infamous promo, and the weeks afterwards made sense. And then they just went completely, utterly overboard and just added anyone and everyone with a name. And it just lost, to me anyway, it lost its impact. It really did. And I got really, really bored very, very quickly. You had the Split, you had the Wolfpack. I mentioned them last week. Yep. That was good. I enjoyed that. The storyline, it was like the civil war between the two. They wanted to split away and, all this kind of stuff. That was really nice. And then they circled that back and they reformed. And it's like, oh, God, really? Yeah, it's probably very well known. I'm not the hugest fan of Hulk Hogan. Even as a kid, I never liked him. All this say your prayers, take vitamins, balls. Even back then, you could see through it all. So that wasn't good. Seeing him as a heel was good because he'd never done it before. Well, not on TV anyway. So that was great. And then, like I said, it got very bloated very quickly. The stories got convoluted, and it lost its way. And I don't think they ever found its way back. That's me and the NWO. What about you? What did you think of the NWO? Did you watch it at the time?
I did watch it at the time, but I almost want to make a bit of a comparison because you said like they tried to get as much out of it. I make it comparative to a show that you got me interested in, Yellow Jackets.
Mm-hmm.
And the carcass was drained of it. It's almost like they're trying to drain every last bit that they can out of it, and so that it is so exhausted that everybody and their mother is a part of it. Yeah, and like you, in its infancy, it was okay, but then I think they knew that it ran its course. I was really conflicted about the Wolfpack, not because it wasn't cool or trendy or like it revitalized it, but like Sting a part of it. When he spent all that time just to fight them.
Yeah.
I don't.
I saw that as so Sting had spent a year plus fighting against them and whatever else. And so when the split happened,
mm-hmm.
and who was the original? Was it Luger was an original Wolfpack? Because of the friendship he had with Luger, he was still, the way I saw it at least, he was still fighting the good fight against the NWO. He just had ex-NWO members, which it happened anyway, because the amount of times the NWO used to boot out a member and they'd have the hump and they'd join and so forth. So I saw it as like that, but I can definitely see where you're coming from, where he's just joined the enemy, basically.
Yeah. So everything kind of reaches its end. It's seeing it when it's losing steam, to keep reincarnating it in different ways when it's essentially the same thing. For your audience, they're gonna get tired of it. And it again, 83 weeks as it won in the ratings, right? And it's been covered to death. And even with the short 4-episode documentary about it, I can't believe Bret Hart was a member of the NWO. It just doesn't make sense.
There you go. Again, yeah. Why? Again, if Bret was to join a Horseman, I could just about understand that. Okay? Bret joining the NWO made no sense, man. Absolutely no sense at all. And then you had Steiner coming in to, and eventually take over the group. Why? The NWO was founded on outsiders. Steiner is Team WCW from day dot. It made no sense.
Yeah.
But then we could write 15,000 word dissertation on this and still not find the reason why the NWO lasted as long as it did. It overran its course by Christ knows how long. Looking back with those rose tinted glasses, there were parts of it that were absolutely fantastic and great. But then you deep dive and you go, yeah, maybe it wasn't as great as what it was. Or remember it was. Sorry.
Yeah. A faction that stood out to me, that I wondered how it could have been more. I almost feel like it was cut short. Was Raven's Flock or the Nest. The images and the characters, to see Billy Kidman disheveled and scratching and like that. I think those things were so neat to see how they looked. I've just ordered my old Raven Anka t-shirt. Hopefully I should be getting that soon. But really, I like, I guess, the aesthetics of the group and how everybody followed this cult around, that this guy would just treat them like garbage, yet they remained with him. And they were, because they just needed something to follow, even if they were treated like trash.
Yeah.
There were some really talented guys that were part of that. I think girls too. I think there was a couple towards the end that were part of it. Leia, well, I'm not sure if Leia Meow, she was in ECW, Leia Meow, who was Kimono Wanalea, but I'm not sure if she was. But yeah, and you had some really talented guys that I wonder whatever happened to them afterwards, like Sick Boy, who was really, really good. And then, of course, you had Saturn, and you had Kidman, and you had C.V. Richards that were all part of this incarnation. I think Scotty Riggs, who had the whole scenario with his eye and having to wear an eye patch.
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, there were some really cool. There were some really cool things, and he belonged to a new group. He's betrayed by Buff Bagwell or Marcus Bagwell at the time, and then he finds new placement somewhere else. But the mystique and how that group, I wonder if it could have lasted longer if others would have been, rather than jealousy that kind of breaks up the group. But I don't know.
So I see you've got some factions that are NWO-esque where you join to take over. You have some factions like the Horsemen where you join to become the best that you can be and take over in a different way by grabbing all the titles. And then you've got Raven's Nest or the Flock or whatever you want to call them, who I think were specifically formed as a storyline, because you had all these people that were cast aside or not used in different groups, and he would have them, as you said, he would take them in under his wing, and he would mould them into his lackeys through just being an absolute bastard to them. And then you would have the eventual split from them. And then that was it. That was the story done. I think that was the whole point of the Flock or the Nest. That was, if he brings someone in, he'll nurture them. And when they get too big for the group, that's when a split happens and the story ends. See what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
That's what I see with that.
I mean, it definitely made Saturn bigger.
Yeah.
Within that group, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some guys shined. I guess much like you would say, like Evolution. There's certain guys that everybody served a purpose, and it's funny to see where everybody's career went afterwards. But yeah, the same thing would have applied here, right?
I mean, look at Kidman. Kidman was a bona fide star when he left that group. Absolutely star.
Yeah.
He went on to face Hogan. I mean, how many WCW wrestlers that were not top tier could say that? It was very, very well done. Very well done. As you said, underrated actually. Very underrated faction.
So, is there another group in WCW outside of the NWO taking pretty much over? Any other groups that you remember from its time, mid to late 90s, that prominent to you or stuck out to you? Wonder if more could have been had with them. Funny, had really interesting moments.
I'll tell you something. I've spoken about this before in the past. About over here, we used to have a dedicated wrestling channel on satellite TV. Another thing that shone bright, shone fast, and died very quickly. They had TNA, the original TNA. So when they had like the $4.99 pay-per-views or whatever it was, the 2 weekly ones, and they did their own version of Team Canada. And I was like, hold on. This has been done before. So the WCW version of Team Canada was not bad. Not bad at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Very funny, actually.
Yeah. I mean, being a Brit, I wouldn't quite get a lot of the deep cuts, but you being a Canadian would have done.
Well, the names of the titles alone.
Yeah.
Like, it's just funny. Right.
But you had Elix. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that you had I can never pronounce his surname. You had Carl. Is it Ouellette? PCO basically.
Ouellette, yeah.
PCO. Yeah. PCO was in Team Canada, and this is going back nearly 30 years ago. PCO, the guy that just was on a TNA Slammiversary pay-per-view a few days ago. It's just insane. You had Jacques Rougeau, obviously, because he's the Mountie and he always gets his man. You had Elix Skipper before he got into TNA and joined. Oh my God, what was the group he joined in TNA? Anyway, it'll come to me. I can't think of the group.
Sports Entertainment Extreme?
That's the one.
SEX? Sports
SEX,
Entertainment Extreme?
yeah. And before he became famous or infamous for walking across the top of a cage and doing a Hurricane Rana, that Elix skipper,
Yeah.
you know, the talent they had.
Yeah.
Again, it went a bit off kilter when you have like Hacksaw Jim Duggan join the group. That didn't make sense. Didn't make sense at all.
So isn't that the most, like, they take the most prominent pro-American and don't make him American? I think, I thought that was part of the humor in it.
Yeah.
You know, they have him shaved, his hair's combed, he's waving the Canadian. It's just so odd, but yeah, okay. It's funny. I was thinking Team Canada, but I'm glad you shared it.
Yeah, Team Canada. Obviously, I remember the TNA version more, but again, with the network and having the ability to look back, it was nice to see that version because I don't really remember it. Yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed that.
So for fans, for listeners that might not know what Mark and I are referring to when it comes to some of the stuff with Team Canada, so Lance Storm was pretty much the face of the team, the face of the faction, and he would rename titles. So the United States Championship was the Canadian Heavyweight Championship. The hardcore title was the Saskatchewan, which Saskatchewan is a province in Ontario on the far side. So everything would have been renamed. I think they had a light heavyweight title. I wasn't sure what that was named. If it's one of those, if you know, you know. And so yeah, so the deep cuts, I guess, were probably lost on some, but when you understand its context, it becomes a little more funny. Any other groups? Like this group, were they heels? Were they faces? One group that kind of stood out to me. I'll share mine, but is there any group that you thought, well, you know, are they a tweener group? Are they more heel? I'm a little confused. Should I be jeering them? Are they just too cool to boo? Are they like anybody stand out like that to you? Because I have my take on one, but
off the top of my head, I can't think of any. But I'll listen to yours. Your take.
Okay, so I was a little conflicted with the Filthy Animals. Like,
yeah,
you put Eddie and Ray and Kidman in a smiling, happy, and Conan, and then you put a happy, smiling Tori Wilson as part of this group, and I'm supposed to boo them? I don't like so. Is this like technically Ray was considered a heel then? I just wasn't sure. What was your take on the Filthy Animals? Unless you have somebody different.
So no. So again, this is back when I had not watched any WCW for quite a while.
Okay.
So along with Major Guns, which I'm now going to remember for the rest of the day, they were featured prominently back on the show. Yeah, I thought they were just, as you said, you know, they're coming to the ring, they're smiling, all that kind of stuff, and then the commentary just absolutely bury them, and I'm thinking, hold on, what have I missed? What it doesn't. Yeah. There's no direct link between what they're doing in the ring and coming to the ring, and what the announce team are saying. It was very strange. Seeing Ray without his mask on threw me as well. That was shocking beyond belief. But yeah, I don't know. I was always told that if you're a heel, then you should limit your big pop moves. So don't do any high flying top rope moves, things like that. If you want a heel group that involves like three of the best cruisers in the world, you're kind of limiting what they're doing, or they're not going to go over as heels. I never quite understood that.
Because the actual nature and what they do generates a reaction.
Yeah.
So you're telling them, don't do the things that get a reaction, but that's our style. It's
exactly that. Yeah. Again, I don't know who was booking at that point. It didn't work for me. It doesn't work for me, brother.
I will say, a few years ago, I had the fortune of talking to Conan, and the one question I did ask him about was the Filthy Animals, and he said to me, like he's said in countless other interviews, which I'm sure you could find elsewhere. I said to Bischoff, listen, you're not using anybody, you're not using any of us if you're going to bury us. Why don't you just bury us together? And so let us just be together because at least I'm working with my friends.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, how bad?
just it.
How bad is that though? I mean, if the morale at your place of work is that bad, where you're like, oh, screw it, let's we're going down in flames, but let's do it all together. As you know, with my friends, that's terrible. And that's before they really hit the skids as well. So.
Another faction that stood out in WCW was really skilled guys, talented guys, and it's funny, these guys, the majority of them, morphed into a faction or a collection in WWE, which we're not going to really cover today, but Shane Douglas and the Radicals. What are your thoughts?
I remember watching live when the Radicals arrived in WWF.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. They were the Revolution.
Sorry, yeah, they were the Revolution, yeah. But when they... I know we're not talking about WWF today, but when they arrived in the WWF, that was like... it was something I'd never really seen before. You'd seen wrestlers jump promotions. You'd never seen a group jump a promotion. So I was like, oh my God, what the hell? They're in the front row. Oh my God, they've jumped the rail. Oh my God, they're getting involved. That was... shocking. I know it sounds tame by nowadays standards, like guys and girls, but back in early 2000, that was shocking as hell. Going back to like when, as you said, they were called the Revolution, I didn't like them that much.
Okay, well, sure.
I didn't like them. I've never been a big Shane Douglas fan. Again, hot take.
There you go.
I never saw it. The guy can talk. Man, I seriously, he's a very underrated talker. Very underrated talker. He is effing fantastic. I nearly swore properly then. If he kept it more 75% talking, 25% wrestling, I think I could have been okay with the group. But Shane didn't keep it like that. He made it all about... I know he's the figurehead and he was the main personality of the group. If you compare that with Evolution, where Triple H was the main personality, I can't even say it, and the leader of the group, he still gave everyone else their time to shine. Whereas I think Shane really didn't. He was all about him. He'll let everyone else have tiny bits. And when you consider who else is in the bloody group, you had Perry Saturn, not long left from the flock, if I remember rightly. Is that right? Or was he far removed from the flock?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fair enough, I guess. Fair enough.
You had Dean Malenko, who... again, is another person I can't understand joining a stable like that because, okay, I can see him as a heel, but as a really nasty bastard of a heel, I couldn't really see. He's too technical to be that kind of a heel.
Yeah.
And then, it's just, I don't know. I just couldn't get it. Didn't get it.
So, okay, and now when you see that shift over... Douglas's role is really replaced by Eddie Guerrero because he was the one denominator that changed between the two. Do you think that with the place of Douglas, had he come over, could it have worked or would it have...
Nope.
Oh,
no. Knowing what we know now, it wouldn't have worked because he didn't get on with Vince that well. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So instantly they're behind the eight ball. I think that was another reason why they didn't ask him to go, if memory serves me correct. But Shane, he had his time. It didn't end well. Let's put it like that. And he did well for himself elsewhere. You know, they didn't need him by that point. They were savvy enough business wise to know that it wouldn't work if he went. And with Eddie's contract dispute and everything else that was going on at the time, it was that perfect storm where, you know, all these things just converged at one point. It was like, right, this is it. This is perfect. Let's do it. And they did, and the rest is bloody history. Apart from Perry Saturn wearing a dress and talking to a mop. But
sadly, that's what ended up happening.
Let's talk about that another
day. We know that we're not going to be covering WWE, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, like, were factions, and we could maybe even do this on another full episode or poor show, but the relationship between Malenko, Benoit, and Douglas was previously when they were the incarnation of the Triple Threat.
That's right.
Back in ECW upon its infancy, right?
Yeah.
And that was a good enough group that maybe that was the time where things made sense. But as characters left and moved on to WCW and he rebuilt, did you want to maybe touch upon their place in ECW or faction history?
Who? Triple Threat?
Triple Threat? Yeah.
Underrated, I think, is the word, and often forgotten, actually, when it comes to factions. They were huge. I mean, in ECW, this was their version of the NWO, but it stayed with three, kind of. And it didn't want to take over the company and, always. They just wanted to be the best. That was like a cross between the Horsemen and the NWO. They were really good. So, I'm going to contradict myself. Because here, Douglas was amazing. Absolutely amazing. He was the heel that he needed to be at that moment in time to push that promotion on. And then you had you had Malenko as well. It was Malenko again. It's just one of those guys that it's sad that he doesn't get the recognition that he should get. We spoke about my wingman, my son, last week, and how when he first got into wrestling, he was all about high flying, like every kid nowadays does. This is like, oh man, top rope moves off the cage, blah 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 blah. Since he started training and watching my kind of wrestling, he absolutely adores Dean Malenko. Absolutely adores his match with his match with Jericho, or matches with Jericho back in WCW. I've watched them countless times. He's watched them countless times with me. And we'll still sit there and we'll still mark out the same points. And we'll still sit there and go, wow, look at that. Look how perfect that was. Malenko. I know that Bret Hart gets called like one of the greatest technical wrestlers ever, which he should be because he's a goddamn legend. But Dean Malenko should be up in that conversation. He's so good. He makes everything look like it's supposed to, like it hurts. But anyway, going off the triple threat, underappreciated, and they carried ECW on its back into basically the recognition.
Oh, no doubt. Are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. You're looking at Candido and their styles and how they all shared a role.
Yeah.
And their place was all important. And then Francine, right? Who added sex appeal and yet at the same time gouge your eyes out, right?
Oh my God, Francine. I've forgotten about Francine. Oh, see, now what have you done to me? Literally, I'm going to go and watch this match soon, and I'm going to try and concentrate on England becoming European championships. And all I'm going to be thinking about is Major Guns and Francine. You asshole.
Yeah, that's the Canadian in me. I have a way of being inthoughtful and inconsiderate, and so yeah.
Sorry, I completely cut you off.
No. They were key and they were important. And while yes, ECW was smaller, the grand scheme of things and their place with WCW was important. Groups like maybe to a lesser degree, the Impact players were known. Just Incredible and Lance Storm and Dawn Marie and Jason, and they worked all together. And then that was a group that worked towards the latter end of their time.
Yeah.
But I guess if you have to compare, I mean, Triple Threat was definitely more prominent. Their place, whether it was as the TV champion or the world champion or tag champions, it was key. You can't deny that too. So,
like I said, they carried that company. They had the very publicized break away from NWA, the rebranding. Once all that fanfare had died away, people kind of forgot about ECW for a bit, and then Triple Threat came along, and it was like, oh wow, let's start watching ECW. So, like I said, underappreciated.
This one is a bit of an interesting take before we head out. The Dudley Boys. Now, as we know the Dudley Boys, it was 2, maybe 3. was a time where the Dudley Boys had Sign Guy Dudley, Big Dick Dudley. I'm not sure if you're gonna have to edit that. Dudley. The family was like the father. The storyline, if anyone's not aware, Bubba Ray and Devon's dad got around, and there was all these half
Boy, did he! God,
that were all connected. Yeah, right. What did you think about, if you're familiar with the earlier incarnation of the Dudley Boys before they all kind of like pulled it up?
So, guys and girls, the millions, you've all heard of, I'm hoping you've all heard of X-Pac heat, okay? So, that's like the heat that X-Pac got towards, I don't know, the middle to end of his career. If you times that by, I don't know, say about 50, that heat, you still wouldn't get anywhere near close to the heat that the Dudley Boys got. Oh my God. Heat magnets, whatever you want to call them, they were that. They were absolutely insane. Whereas I said like Triple Threat was important to the company for the carrying them on their back into recognition, the Dudley Boys kind of took the baton, ran with it, and didn't just run 100 meters. They ran 50 miles with it. They were absolutely amazing. They could make you hate them. They could make you laugh at them. They could make you love them, all in a snap of a finger. And I'm going to use it again. They were absolutely underrated. Not unlike the NWO with their revolving door of family members. But
oh my God.
But yeah, they were absolutely amazing. But yeah, Big Dick, I'm going to keep it in. Screw it, I don't care. I'm going to say it again. Big Dick, he got around, as his name says. He had quite a few children around quite a few states of the USA. And every once in a while, they would come, the offspring would come and try and find their pa and join the family. Basically, that was it. But they were all arseholes, absolute arseholes. Try and think of, if you don't know it, look it up. The film Deliverance. It's kind of based a little bit like that, but not as far-fetched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The inbred kind of isms, if that makes any sense at all. Again, I think the...
You remember who started?
Sorry?
You remember who started in that? Or who starred in that film? Was it Samuel L. Jackson?
Samuel L. Jackson? No, was it? What, in Deliverance?
Yeah. I don't know. You're saying Deliverance, so I just want to make sure.
Did the banjo playing? Sitting in the front porch with the rocking chair?
Okay. Could be. It sounds like something I think I've seen Samuel L. Jackson do, followed by tons of cursing, but I don't know.
But yeah, the Dudleys, oh man, they were amazing. They were putting people through tables. They were putting women through tables before putting women through tables was cool, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
You know, they were basically the heart and soul of ECW, which is strange to say. Strange to say for a heel faction.
And here we are in some carnation or another. They're still teaming, whether on the independents or somehow. But that says a lot to them.
Exactly that. They're Hall of Famers. They're still wrestling. They've got schools. Isn't Spike a fireman? Didn't I read that he was a fireman?
I believe so.
Spike was a fireman.
Fireman or?
Well, no, it was a paramedic. It was in the emergency services, I think. But you know,
yeah.
Oh, love them to pieces. I hate to be a bit of a ball buster, my friend, but
not at all.
I can hear. Can you hear that? In the faint distance, I can hear.
Yes.
I can hear it's coming home. Yep, it's coming home. I have to go. I'm being charmed.
So let's wrap up, friends. This will end our edition of the Factions WCW early WWF edition. Maybe we should share with listeners our socials, my friend.
Just before we do that, I just want to say I really enjoyed this, and
good.
Just a heads up to everyone. I didn't do any prep for this whatsoever. Well, actually, that's a lie. I did do prep for this, but all the pages that I bookmarked had suddenly disappeared. So I was literally on the fly for this. But I don't care. I really enjoyed it. We do need to do maybe a part 2 and a part 3 of this because we could really go deep. Go deep into this. But yeah, socials
for sure.
Right, Mark. What do you now? We had this the other day where you kind of literally forgot your socials. Do you have them at hand today?
I do. Thankfully, I wrote them down. I'm going to have to start tattooing them like on Memento, the movie Memento. I don't forget. You can reach me at the Mark Madison on Twitter X. You can also reach the ProWrestlingPost.com site, Twitter X handle at ProWrestlingPST. You can also reach us on Instagram at ProWrestlingPost and search us up on Facebook, Pro Wrestling Post. We are there. Search for our page. Anybody else? Imitators. Go for it, my friend. Yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I am on Instagram at _Mark_Blake, where I post quite a lot of wrestling stuff and a few things that are not wrestling related. Just how I feel that day, really. And on the Twitter, I shall never call it by that stupid bloody name, I'm at the Mark Blake, all one word. Catch us on there, drop us a message. DMs are always open. If Major Guns or Francine is listening, my DMs are always open. I can say that because my wife doesn't listen to this. So, again, Mark, thank you again. This has been absolutely wonderful. I've enjoyed this trip down memory lane. I cannot wait to do it again, but I'm being called away on that bombshell. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Adios.